Alright. I don't know how to start this shit. Normally, I like to script my reviews, script all my videos as they come out, because then it makes it flow better, makes it easier to edit, but I'm not even gonna fucking bother with the show. I don't even know if I'm gonna edit any of the audio here. I probably won't. Okay, I will edit that. Probably. I'm a little bit under the weather, but so the Obi-Wan show. It came out. It was successful. People seem to like it. Some people don't seem to like it. The reaction to the show is actually kind of weird. It's like 66, 2/3, like like 66%, like seem to really, really like it. And then there's like a 10% that's like, no, this show is the worst thing ever, and they ruined Obi-Wan Kenobi. Fuck Disney. And then the remaining, what would be the remaining percent? The remaining like 23% is the camp that I fall under, which is that, no, the show isn't nearly that bad. Shut up. But it also isn't nearly as good as the 66% is saying. It's pretty mid, not gonna lie. And it's just, oh my god. It's just so frustrating because, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say that this show had a ton of potential. I don't think we necessarily needed an Obi-Wan Kenobi show set in the Empire era. But I'm going to put the headphones down. You know, it's just so annoying when we get shows like this, and they aren't good. Not that this wasn't, no, it wasn't good. It was mid. The Obi-Wan Kenobi show is very, very mid, and it's the kind of mid I'm seeing a lot now, where writers will have tons of good ideas and no fucking clue how to put those ideas into practice. So you get stories, shows, movies, games, whatever, that have really high highs, but they're shrouded by all these weird structural problems, and that kind of muffles them. And you know, the Obi-Wan show, it does have some really good ideas. And it's plagued by filmmaking problems and structural problems. I think those two are the biggest issues with it. I think the thing that's most disappointing for me, though, is the fact that the Obi-Wan show definitely tricked me with its first episode, because that first episode was very much what I wanted the show to be. I wasn't one of those people that said we need to stay on Tatooine. I was perfectly fine with leaving Tatooine. But I did want it to be very slow, very deliberate, and to make use of the fact that we have all these kinds of Inquisitors that in and of themselves are intimidating, to kind of build up the tension without just being action for 6 episodes. And, you know, kind of let the characters breathe a little bit. Really lean into the mundanity of Obi-Wan's life, lean into how shitty his situation is. I do like that they gave him like a Last Jedi Luke type arc where he's just like, nah, we fucking failed. We're screwed here. And then he has to learn to reconnect. And like that makes sense. That makes sense. That's a good way to get his character from Ewan McGregor to Alec Guinness. But I feel like after the first episode, they kind of abandoned that in exchange for another their old wizened character meets up with little kind of naive, although I guess Leia's a little bit more jaded in this show, and naive character, and they go on wacky adventures together. Yay! That was, oh god. It's like, there's something wrong with that, but it's like, if I wanted to go see that, I'd go watch The Mandalorian, because, you know, I like The Mandalorian a lot, both seasons 1 and 2. Like, I've been seeing a lot from the negative crowd being like, Mandalorian Season 2 wasn't good because it was just cameos the show. But I like that. I like that. So it just... I don't know. I like that shit, so I'm perfectly A-okay with cameos that are integrated into the story in a way. Like, I feel like Ahsoka, yeah, it makes sense. You're not going to include Luke for an entire episode, so Jedi he goes to see... And also, it's like, I need to find a Mandalorian who knows a Jedi. It makes sense that he would go searching for, like, Bo-Katan, and then Bo-Katan would send him to Ahsoka, because that's the Jedi that she knows. So that stuff all works for me. I'm fine with the cameos, because... It's still centered very much on this... it's still very much centered on Din Djarin. He's the main character. The show never loses focus of that. And so we can just kind of go with these adventures, and we can kind of have Jin almost be an audience insert, where he doesn't really know too much about the deep lore of Star Wars. He knows his little things, that the Empire fell, that there was a great purge of some kind on Mandalore, but he doesn't really know all the inner workings of things like the Clone Wars and Rebels. And so that's what I really like about the show too, is that it can kind of be a lot of the more casual fans' introduction to that kind of part of Star Wars. The Obi-Wan show, though, is not that really. It's trying to be. It's full of cameos. It's got Darth Vader in it. It's got the Grand Inquisitor in it for about 10 minutes. Qui-Gon's in this show for about 5 seconds. And it's like, none of those cameos are necessarily bad. Like, they all work within the story and make sense and so on and so forth. But it's just, I feel like the show didn't need to have this kind of adventure. It didn't need to have a big lightsaber fight between Vader and Obi-Wan. I would say it didn't need to have a duel between Vader and Obi-Wan at all in the show. Kind of build up this mystique around Vader using the Inquisitors as kind of lower level antagonists. I don't know. Just anything more creative than what they ended up doing. And again, they did what they did, and some of it is good. I like the last episode too, because I like their little final confrontation. It was pretty entertaining. Wasn't great, and we'll get to why it wasn't great, but it was fine. I like when Vader screams Obi-Wan's name. I like Reva's little kind of redemption arc. I feel like and I like the line, like I especially like how Obi-Wan's like, "No, you're not Anakin," because Anakin couldn't resist the dark side and killed the children, and you didn't. You weren't too weak to kill the child. You were too strong to. And that's kind of that line. That's not exactly like that, but that's basically the gist of it. That's an Alec Guinness line. So it kind of shows how he's grown. Okay, so now let's talk about why the show is still pretty mid despite all this cool stuff that is in here. It isn't just that it feels very by the books, because again, by the books isn't bad. I wish it wasn't the Obi-Wan show that was being by the books. But at the end of the day, they did it by the books, and that's fine. My main problems with the Obi-Wan show stem from the fact that it had a $25 million budget for the entire miniseries. Not even like multiple seasons of television, so it's not like they had to stretch it out super far. No, for the entire season. And that the writers forgot that they were writing a miniseries with no season 2 planned. Now, there probably will be a season 2, which pisses me off because I don't want more of this. But assuming that they knew what we thought, that it was going to be one season miniseries, they somehow, for some reason, decided that writing an entire episode of filler was a good idea. It's like, you can write good filler, but I don't think filler should be in a miniseries with only 6 episodes. You need all that time. You have to utilize all that time, or else everything else you're going to do is going to feel rushed. And that's exactly what happened. You have episode 4 here, where we have to go rescue Leia again. And there's no interesting character stuff in that episode at all. There's nothing in that. I get, like, the novelty of the location itself is cool, because I like Jedi Fallen Order. But it doesn't enhance anything. It doesn't mean anything. The final scene with Vader is cool, but that really only exists to get us to episode 5. There's just like, why? Why would you write an episode of a miniseries to just be pure filler? And it's like, again, man, and it's not like, oh, I could justify the filler if the filler ended up being like fun and engaging. That doesn't even matter. We know the show is low production quality. The problem is that there's filler in a miniseries. You're not supposed to put filler in a miniseries because a miniseries is just an extended movie. Did it make sense? And so episodes 5 and 6, even though they're good, they feel very, very rushed because they have to stuff all this character stuff with Obi-Wan being the master and Vader being the learner and going back to the prequels and Qui-Gon Jinn and their final duel and all that stuff. They squeeze it into 2 episodes when it really should have been 4. Cut episode 3, cut episode 4, just go from episode 2 to episode 5, have that be episode 3, and then extend all the stuff in episodes 5 and 6 into 4 episodes instead of 2. Maybe you could have the Reva thing where she goes back to Tatooine and Obi-Wan has to go and find her. Extend that into an entire episode. You could do that. That's not hard. But they don't do that because they want to have this filler episode in there for some reason. I don't know why. There's no reason. It's not like the show... I don't know why they chose to write it like that. It's just such a strange decision. It's like a bad decision too, yes, but it's just so weird. Like, nothing indicated that would be a good trajectory to take the show. Did they think that the twirling of Obi-Wan's lightsaber was a character moment? Because if so, how fucking shallow are these writers? So at the end of the day, the biggest problem with the Obi-Wan show isn't that the writing is inherently bad, it's that they chose to write an episode of terrible filler, and that messes with all of the other good ideas they have and makes them feel rushed and half-assed, which is what the show feels like. It feels half-assed because they wrote an episode of filler into a miniseries. The other main problem with the Obi-Wan show would probably be the low production value. Again, they only had a $25 million budget. Why? It's like... So The Mandalorian, a season about some new character no one's ever heard of, gets that amount of money for one episode. $25 million each episode. That's enough to make it look like a movie. It's movie-level quality. They even got a professional, good cinematographer in Greg Fraser. But a miniseries, not even like a full-on television show that's going to last 5 seasons like The Mandalorian, is a miniseries about one of the most important characters in the second most lucrative franchise of all time, doesn't get that same treatment? That seems very, very strange to me. You'd think they'd give more funds to the miniseries about Obi-Wan Kenobi than to the new Star Wars show, Mandalorian. That's just so fucking weird to me. It's so strange. And so you end up with all of these kinds of fight scenes, action, spectacle that just feels so amateur. It's like people have been comparing them to fan films. They're worse than fan films because at least fan films, good fan films like Scene 38 Reimagined, have a sense of geography to them. There's a hallway. They go through the hallway in the Death Star. I can't tell you anything about the environments in which Vader and Obi-Wan fought in Episode 3. They didn't matter. Obi-Wan didn't use the fact that there was a high ground to his left. There was no meaning to the location. There was no, they weren't high up on a cliff or anything. The environment doesn't interact with the fight, and so the fight feels very frictionless. And it's better in the end because they go into a bunch of jagged rocks, and they use the rocks in the fight, and so there's a sense of geography there. But what planet did he go on to? Why did he go to that planet? I guess he just chose the random planet, which, I don't really like that. I like everything to have meaning. And so it's just ugh. And so the action is bad. So you have a show where the action is bad. The art direction feels lackluster. The story is rushed because they chose to put filler in the middle of it for some reason I can't imagine. It's full of cameos. They just jerk off to the prequels for the last 2 episodes. Bothers me. I know I should. It's And so you just have this show where it's like all these good ideas are drowned out in a sea of weird decisions that make no sense, not just from a making the story good sense, but from a business perspective. Again, you're writing a miniseries, why would you write filler into it? That's not a make the story good thing, that's a make the story complete thing. You run out of time. You don't cram an assignment like that. You don't shoot yourself in the foot and then try and cram the assignment. And then, like, from a business perspective, why would you not make Obi-Wan show look like the biggest, most epic movie of all time? Why wouldn't you just make the Obi-Wan show a movie? A big Hollywood, like, blockbuster release in theaters. It would make billions. It just makes no sense to me. I think it's really indicative of the way Star Wars has been going for the past few years. It's not... I don't think they know what to do with Star Wars anymore. They know they need to continue it because it makes money and people like it and they want more content from it. And I'm going to be clear, I'm one of those people, right? I'm not one of those old, crusty folks, I guess, who think Star Wars was never meant to be a franchise. Because I've read into what Lucas was planning with the original trilogy, and that's a false statement. He was planning to make it a franchise with sequels and merchandise and spin-offs and so on and so forth. That was always his plan. When he signed the deal with 20th Century Fox, he signed over all the box office, or most of it. He didn't take that much of a cut of the gross. And he didn't get paid a ton to make it. But he had the foresight to know that he was going to be able to make sequels and merchandise. So he secured those rights. And 20th Century Fox was like, yeah, sure, you can have them. Because they didn't recognize that Lucas was creating this new film world in which franchises and merchandise was the way that money was going to be made. So I don't want to hear any of the shit that Star Wars was not meant to last this long. It was designed to last this long. Or at least as long as possible. As long as Lucas was alive. The problem is he sold it to Disney. And Disney couldn't... and Disney's not necessarily the problem either, because Disney's a giant faceless corporation. They don't care what anyone at Lucasfilm does with Star Wars. And then they gave it to a group of people that didn't know what to do without George, because George didn't tell them. Kathy Kennedy was hired by George Lucas. And George Lucas was after he kind of lost control on Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. He was very adamant about him kind of doing the things and him having control of the universe. So Kathy was kind of a backseat driver, just managing funding and stuff. So when he left and Kathy was put in charge of not just the entire company, but basically creatively what to do with the IP, you suddenly run into this situation where she doesn't know what to do with it. No one else knows what to do with it. And so they hand it off to J.J. Abrams. Okay, that doesn't work. Hand it off to Rian Johnson. Doesn't work. Hand it back to J.J. Abrams. People seem to like Force Awakens more than The Last Jedi. Doesn't work. Works even less. Hand it off to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. Well, eventually you get to mediocre products like Book of Boba Fett and Bad Batch. And at the end of the day, it's just a question of what to do. I think what needs to be done is there needs to be a fundamental shake-up like there was at DC when Justice League was a huge flop. What needs to happen is there needs to be something that fails so spectacularly that Lucasfilm goes, okay, we have to reorganize our strategies. And I feel like that already happened with Rise of Skywalker, and I feel like they took the same lesson that DC did. Don't try and just make sequels and connect them and try and like just make it a series of movies. No. Make it different spin-off projects and hand them off to different people. And I don't get me wrong, I like that plan. I just worry how many of the people they've brought in actually know about Star Wars, care about Star Wars, want to see more Star Wars. I want to know how many of them are work for hire, how many of them actually care. And so, I don't know, man. I'm excited for some stuff from Star Wars. Mandalorian Season 3, Visions, Jedi Fallen Order 2, Survivor, I guess, is what it's called. and Taika Waititi's film. But I can't say I'm really all that hyped for Andor. I think it looks decent. I can't say I'm all that hyped for Ahsoka, or Acolyte, or Rogue Squadron. And that's just kind of annoying. It's not sad. It's good that there's more Star Wars stuff coming. I like Star Wars. It's just annoying that in order to get to the stuff I actually am excited for, I also kind of have to plow through this. It's like, well, if you aren't interested in it, then don't watch it, right? And it's like, yeah, but I like Star Wars. I like it. And so I'm going to keep coming back as long as they put the name on it and hope it's good. And maybe one of these days it will be. But that day is not today. So I guess the question is this a step forward or a step back in terms of Star Wars? It's not a step anywhere. We had a step forward with The Mandalorian. We had 2 steps back. We had a step forward with Visions. The 2 steps back are Bad Batch and Book of Boba Fett. So we're just kind of at a neutral position in terms of what Star Wars should be. No one really knows. So Obi-Wan comes out and we're like, maybe this will tell us. And then it just kind of ends. And it doesn't tell us anything we didn't already know. Like, not in terms of, like, the content of Obi-Wan, but it doesn't tell us anything we didn't already know about Star Wars, that they have no idea what they're doing, and they're just going to keep making more of these series. It's mid. It's not going to harm anyone. It won't destroy your childhood unless you're so invested in the prequels that a shocking lack of prequel content in the first half of it is missing. You know, personally, I never cared for the prequels, so that doesn't bother me. But if you were a prequels kid, that probably would bother you. I don't know. It's fine. 6 out of 10. There are some really good ideas, but at the end of the day, it just feels all bungled in weird decisions that don't make sense to me, both as a aspiring filmmaker and my producer brain. Just like, okay, it's just like, ugh. It's like, why would they make these choices? But yeah, mid, 6 out of 10. Watch it if you want. Watch it if you like Obi-Wan. Watch it if you like Ewan. But if you just want more Star Wars fun stuff, I'd wait till Mandalorian Season 3 to get back into the franchise. If you want experimental Star Wars stuff, then you don't have to wait as long, because we're getting Visions this September, I think. I'll check. But, I mean, yeah, it was fine. It was fine. It's not Rise of Skywalker or Attack of the Clones levels of bad, but it's not original trilogy levels of good. It's dead in the middle. And I don't know whether to feel positively about that or not.